Hello and welcome back, or welcome to the Riley Brakefield Show. I am your host, Riley Brakefield, also known on the streets as your boy Titties. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I sure shit did. I was at the LSU Alabama game like I told you I would be. Took the fucking top off, showed the tits to the world. Absolute hell of a game. We'll get more into that. Big college football weekend that we just had. Lots of upsets, lots of good stuff happening. Getting a couple news articles here to start out the show. Nothing too crazy. Gonna hit my top five favorite actors this week. Top takeaways from the games this weekend in college football. Then a couple takeaways from the NFL and a couple thoughts, whatnot. Then finishing off with just my thoughts segment. Should be a good one, I hope. If you're an LSU fan, you're gonna want to stick around for it. But let's get into today's show. The Astros won the World Series over the weekend, and nobody really gave a shit. No, they won Saturday night when college football was happening. Baseball's not that high in the totem pole when it comes to sports. Just isn't. I honestly think that they should change the baseball season up, maybe start in like February or something and end in August. I think it would make more sense. More people would probably be interested more, or just shorten the season. I just don't get it. I guess nobody cares too much about baseball, especially when the Astros win. Everyone knows they cheated, but they did it. I am excited for Dusty Baker. He finally got himself a World Series ring. He's been a manager since the freaking 80s or 90s, I believe. I think it was the 80s. I looked it up after I saw that they had won because I was like, I don't think he ever won one. And I was like, holy shit, he's been coaching forever. Cool for them. I kind of like the Astros. That they're a team that I root for, I guess you could say. I know most people don't like them, but they don't bother me too much. Frank Reich got fired today, actually, and Jeff Saturday is now going to be the interim head coach, somebody who's never coached an NFL game in his life, but he's a part of the team in some way or form. I don't really know how. I know he's been on TV, but Frank Reich is gone. Everyone kind of saw it coming. They fired the OC. They benched Matt Ryan, so it was only kind of a matter of time before the next move was to just get rid of Frank Reich. They did that. Sucks, but I'm sure he'll land somewhere on his feet. And I think the Colts, who knows who they'll hire, but there's a ton of talent on that roster. Absolutely loaded roster. Tons of talent. So, they're going to be a desired job, I would say. I would say there'd be quite a few people that'll be interested in taking them over. You can either have Matt Ryan as your quarterback, or you're probably going to have, a top 10, 15 pick. So why not go draft yourself a quarterback that you feel fits your scheme, or you can build a scheme around. So we'll see what happens there. I am currently watching the Ravens-Saints game as it's going on here after the Ravens just scored the first touchdown of the night. So I'd be surprised if the Ravens don't run away with this one. Wouldn't be surprised at all. LeBron James continues to show that he is the smartest man in the world. He had a press conference over, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, but he said that he was listening to the Migos in 2010 when he was playing with the Heat, before anyone else was even on to him. And Migos didn't start releasing music till 2011. So, Doi, he's had some fucking clips out there where he said some of the stupidest shit in the world. He literally reminds me of that kid in high school that lived at the trailer park. Well, no, hold on. Reminds me of that kid in high school that would always come in, oh yeah, man, I was partying crazy this weekend. I was banging bitches. I was doing drugs. I had all the alcohol. It was lit. When in reality, he was just hanging out at his grandparents' house, just in the trailer park community, just trying to be cool. LeBron has to be one of the dumbest people on planet Earth. And he lies for no reason. That's how you know he's just dumb. He literally lies to try to be cool. And he's one of the most famous athletes the world's ever seen. And he lies to try to be cool. He doesn't even know half the rap songs he tries to. He's incompetent. He needs to be monitored. He's honestly worse than Joe Biden at times. And that's saying something. But that's beside the point. This isn't really news, but I have to make the case for how no one is talking about this guy to win the Heisman. Nobody, he's got a little bit of talk. Well, he's got betting odds. But nobody's really looking at the numbers and realizing that Drake Maye probably has the best case for Heisman out of any quarterback in the country. He's outplaying C.J. Stroud and Hendon Hooker far and wide. I got a couple stats here. Which one is okay? Drake Maye. 2,964 yards passing. That's fourth in the country. Better than Stroud, better than Hooker. Completion percentage is at 71.2 completions per game. That's his percentage. Sixth in the country. Also, better than Stroud, better than Hooker. 31 touchdowns. Has the most touchdown passes in the entire country. Nobody's better. Absolutely no one. Only thrown 3 interceptions. It's tied 13th. Hendon Hooker has 2. CJ Stroud has 4. His passer rating, 181.8. Second best in the country, behind one person, CJ Stroud. He only gets beat in those 2 categories by either Hooker or CJ Stroud. He's literally outperforming them at every level. Damn near. But then the argument's going to be, well, the competition. Everyone knows CJ Stroud has not played anybody hardly tough. He's had maybe 3 games, maybe tough. Drake Maye has had to propel his team to wins every time. Hendon Hooker's had a difficult road. They've played some tough competition here and there. Georgia, Bama, LSU, Pitt. But when we look at the Pitt game that both Hendon Hooker and Drake Maye have had, Hendon Hooker's stats versus Pitt: 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 64.3 completion percentage, and 145 passer rating. Okay? Drake Maye against Pittsburgh: 388 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 77.3 completion percentage, and 188.8 passer rating. That's been his best game, far and wide. Hands down, best game that he's had. 388 through the air, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they won the game. Drake Maye also played Notre Dame, who CJ Stroud has played. And Drake Maye and the Tar Heels did lose to Notre Dame. CJ Stroud and Ohio State won. Yes, they did. They sure did. It wasn't all that pretty. In his game against Notre Dame, Drake Maye had 301 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 53.1 completion percentage, the lowest he's had all year. But still, he had 301 yards and 5 touchdowns, 183.7 passer rating. Pretty stellar game, really. And the only reason they lost that is because their defense has sucked all year. Their defense has been absolutely garbage. Against Notre Dame, CJ Stroud had 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 70.6 completion percentage, 145.1 passer rating. And yes, the argument that I'll have for this is Drake Maye does more with less. His best receiver is Josh Downs. The rest of the guys are okay, but not great. Tennessee's loaded at wide receiver. Ohio State's loaded at receiver. You could throw any quarterback in the country on either of those teams, and they would still find a way to be successful, if not just as good, because they have a ton of talent around them. Drake Maye, however, elevates that talent on his team. He makes the Tar Heels better, and if he played for Ohio State or Tennessee, they would be undefeated. They'd be destroying everybody, and they'd look like they were unbeatable, unlike Tennessee and Ohio State this year. Drake Maye deserves the Heisman, but he's not going to get it because he plays for North Carolina, and that's a bunch of fucking bullshit. He's the best quarterback in the country, hands down. If he played on any team in this country, he would instantly make them better because he's that kind of quarterback. You can't say the same for CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker, in my opinion. You put them on North Carolina's just mid, because their defense sucks and their offense would be okay. Drake Maye for Heisman, that's my case. Fucking voters, if you're listening, that's who you should vote for, not some quarterback that plays on a team that's top 5 in the country just because they're the quarterback. That's not the case at all. Moving on, though. My top 5 favorite actors, hands down, in my life, the ones I've always loved, the ones I loved every time they have a movie or TV show, gotta watch it. Number 5, Leonardo DiCaprio. I know that he doesn't like, older women. I get that. I'm not a fan of older women myself. My wife's the same age as me. It's not like a child pedophilia thing. Leo, number 5, I always love his movies. He's just a phenomenal actor. Number 4, Ryan Reynolds. Everything about the guy. I love the relationship him and his wife have. Every movie he has, the sarcasm, the humor, the way, the action, all of it, just absolutely kills it. Number 3, Marky Mark Wahlberg. Simple for the fact that Mark Wahlberg's just the best. I watched his documentary on HBO about his life and all the businesses he does. Stellar. Everything about Mark Wahlberg. He can do comedy, action, drama, whatever, you name it. Mark Wahlberg could be your guy. Number 2, resident funny guy, Will Ferrell. Absolutely love him. And he does not get enough love for Land of the Lost, because that movie is wall-to-wall funny and one of the better comedy movies of, since there's no such thing as comedy movies anymore because of the woke media. He just killed it, and he's coming. Him and Ryan Reynolds actually have a movie coming out on Apple TV. I think it's gonna be funny. But Will Ferrell, number 2, because number 1 has to be the goat of all goats, Adam Sandler. I've always loved Adam Sandler. I always wish to meet the man someday because he brings me so much joy. He's always brought me joy. I've been watching his movies since I was like 3 years old. I remember I'd watch Big Daddy and Waterboy on repeat because I could never get enough of him. So hands down, my number 1 actor of all time, my favorite guy, Adam Sandler. Put me in one of your movies, Adam, please. Thank you. I rest my case. Please put me in your movies. So let's talk some fucking college football. What a weekend we had, huh? Tennessee gets upset in quotation marks. LSU upsets Bama. Notre Dame upsets Clemson. Just a whole lot of upsets. Start off with the LSU-Alabama game. I am on top of the world right now after that game. I woke up Sunday morning and was just absolutely juiced. I've only ever been to 5 LSU games in my life, 4 now in Death Valley, and every time I've been at a game in Death Valley, LSU doesn't lose. So if you're an LSU fan and you just want to donate your tickets to me every time we have a home game, I'll gladly take them. It was just an absolute, it's an instant classic. I mean, I absolutely love the nuts on Brian Kelly to go for 2. I would do the same thing in that situation. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it enough. The fact that, because when you look at it, the defense was tired. I know the defense was tired. Played lights out in the first half. Absolutely were dominating. Alabama couldn't get the ball moving. Alabama comes out in the second half. They pretty much run the ball down our throat, wear out our defense. And after that, they kept almost every drive Alabama was scoring. Almost every drive they were getting points, some type of points, keeping themselves in the game. And the defense was tired. I mean, you just should have, the tip pass, in overtime, should have changed the whole game. We should have been able to get the ball, kick field, score touchdown, game over, right? That didn't go our way. So that the positivity, the confidence in the defense went down. I know it did. It had to have. So for Brian Kelly to go for 2, just be like, you know what, we win or we lose, we die with it. And I love it. I love the guts, the balls. And the play was awesome. The stadium, the whole game was awesome. I mean, there's 2 small earthquakes because that's how loud the stadium was. But Alabama, 2 losses. They're more than likely out of the college football playoff picture unless chaos ensues and LSU loses 2 more games. Then there's no way that if LSU has to lose 2 more games for Alabama to have a shot at the playoff. But they just do not have the talent that they used to. The wide receivers aren't there. They're just not. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's okay. He's not amazing. He's not a world beater. He's not the best back in the country. He's not even top 10 back probably. He's just not. They don't have that talent that they have. And where's Will Anderson been? I tweeted it out. His stats last year on that dominant run that he had were unreal. This year, lackluster as fuck. Will Anderson hasn't hardly done anything all season long. He's pretty much been a non-factor in most games, it seems like. I didn't hear his name called once on Saturday. I'd have to watch the film again to see if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like he was in there making plays. Just absolutely love it. Alabama's going to probably fire their coordinators and reload somehow and be back to being good next year, or might be the end of the dynasty. But as many said on Twitter, the dynasty's over once you beat Alabama at home and you don't rush the field. That'll be a sad day for Alabama fans. But as of right now, LSU controls their own destiny. I'll talk more about that later, but absolutely, hands down, fucking juiced. It was awesome. Couldn't be happier. Best game I've ever seen. Georgia dominated Tennessee, though, and they made them look bad. 6 sacks. I think they had 10 coming into this season, Georgia did. 6 sacks, 1 game, putting so much pressure on them, held them to under 200 yards passing. They were under 100 yards rushing. I think they had like 96 maybe. I might be wrong. I thought that's what it was. I thought I wrote it down. But they put so much pressure on Hendon Hooker that they just weren't able to do anything. Tennessee got exposed. You put pressure on them, that's what happens. It's just the environments maybe, when it's raining like that and you're a team that consistently passes, probably hurts you a little bit, but Georgia's #1 in the country, man. Until proven otherwise, they're a tough task to beat. I mean, when you have a veteran quarterback, definitely helps too. So, Clemson finally did what we all knew was coming from week 1. They slipped up and they got exposed bad. Notre Dame, huge win for Marcus Freeman though. Huge win at home. They got to rush the field. Clemson's more than likely out of the playoff picture, but their dynasty could be over too. I mean, didn't make the playoffs last year. More than likely not going to make the playoffs this year. I think a 2-loss team has a better chance than they do, and I think North Carolina is going to beat Clemson in the ACC championship if it comes down to it. I don't know what Clemson needs to do. Even Cade Klubnik, I think is how you say his name. He didn't look good either when they brought him in. Made a stupid pass when he was getting sacked. Like, everyone knew that they weren't the 4th best team in the country, and everyone knew that at some point it was coming. We were hoping it wasn't going to be the playoffs, and thank God it wasn't. So shout out Notre Dame for getting the fucking dub. You're no longer a bunch of bitches, in my opinion. So good for you. That's not the only field that got rushed this weekend. It wasn't the only upset. Kansas upsets Oklahoma State at home. Goalpost comes down. Field gets rushed. You love it, man. Kansas is bowl eligible for the first time since 2008. 2008, man. That was like fucking years ago. What? Do the math. 14 years ago? 14 years ago was the last time that Kansas was in a bowl game. That's like a freshman in high school. That's crazy. And there was a clip floating around of the event staff after the game, and the boss or whatever, he said that he's all like, well, shit happens, I guess, knowing that the field goal post was getting taken down. So absolutely juice for Kansas. I've been so happy to see them having success this year. Nothing makes me happier than seeing Rock Chalk Jayhawk get it going. Ohio State and Michigan did not look good. They looked okay, not close to good. They struggled against Rutgers and Northwestern, and I'll give Ohio State a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. The weather, I understand, but football, you still got to run the ball. Running the ball still works sometimes, so we'll see. I don't know, man. I think that more than likely it's just going to be Georgia running away with it this year, because I don't have that much faith in Ohio State and Michigan. It's not like their schedules get any harder till they play each other. So, bunch of weak fucking teams, in my opinion. TCU continues to win games, man. They got the job done. Texas Tech to keep it close there for a while. I was watching it before I went over to the stadium. Kept it really close, but the Horned Frogs, I'm struggling with my words tonight. The Horned Frogs pulled away in the second half, took care of business like they're supposed to. They got moved up to 4th in the AP poll, which is huge for them. I think if they win out, there's no way they can be denied a playoff spot. They'll be either one of possibly, at most right now, 3 undefeated teams in the country, so they absolutely would deserve a spot there, because going undefeated in one of the 5 toughest conferences in the schedule deserves a playoff spot. And maybe they'll get their asses handed to them in the playoffs, but we'll never know until it happens, right? So happy for TCU, happy for the fucking Hypno-Toad Horned Frogs. Keep on winning. I love Max Duggan. Keep it up, bro. Oregon, USC, and UCLA all kind of did what they were supposed to. They're fighting for that Pac-12 bid possibly, but none of the 3 really looked too great. I mean, they were playing crappy teams. Cal was keeping it close with USC. Arizona was keeping it interesting with Oregon, and ASU kept it interesting with UCLA. But we'll see what happens there. I'm excited. It's a 3-team race. Utah could get lucky and slide in there if chaos ensues, but 3-team race, and I think whoever wins will have a good case for the playoff. Illinois and Syracuse's Magic, both of their Magic have ran out. Illinois, it seemed, got kind of embarrassed by Michigan State when Michigan State had quite a few players out after the suspensions and stuff, and Syracuse lost to Pitt. Pitt's a good team though. I can't deny that Pitt's a good team. I think that they're a top 30 team in the country, probably. Syracuse, I would keep them there, but they just 3 in a row. The team Team morale's probably down a little bit. We'll see what happens with them, but I don't know. We'll see. North Carolina keeps on winning, man. They just one of the luckiest teams in the country. They escaped Virginia. I thought for sure they were going to blow them out. That's the only thing that hurts their playoff case is their defense. Their defense is just absolutely freaking abysmal. It's sad to see. But North Carolina, they won again, man. You never know if things shake out. They could make the playoff. Arkansas and Texas A&M, I can't believe that those two teams were ranked in the top 10 at one point. I mean, I told you I thought Liberty was going to have a legit chance. They covered the spread, even won the game. Should have took the money line pick. I know I should have, dude. But I was too scared because every time I try to predict a big upset like that, it never seems to work out. And Texas A&M, man, did not look good against Florida. They had a ton of players out, though. They did just lose they just got a decommitment from a five-star, the best linebacker in the country, I believe. He's got a visit with Texas this weekend, so that's probably playing into it big time. But they're just down bad, and I don't see it changing. Probably the best game this weekend, though, that wasn't really talked about because it wasn't one of the big marquee ones, has to be Houston and SMU. A total of 140 points were scored. SMU won 77-63. Clayton Tune, Tanner Mordecai just boom, 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 throwing the ball around. I think there was a total of 16 passing touchdowns. Like, what? Ridiculous. Or, no. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it was 14. I don't know. Or maybe it was just 4. I don't know. Something total. There was just so many points scored. Points, and just the ball getting thrown around like crazy. I didn't get to see it, but watch the highlights. It didn't look like it was a fun game to watch. Now I just want to talk a little bit here about the remaining teams that I think legit have a playoff chance. Georgia obviously controls their destiny. Pretty weak schedule to end out the season. Their next big challenge will be the SEC championship game. Whoever they play, they'll probably keep it interesting. I think if they played Ole Miss, they wouldn't. But we'll see what happens there. I think Georgia's pretty much a shoe-in to win unless they slip up here to end out the season and then lose the SEC championship. Then I don't think that they'd have a case. But even if they lost the SEC championship, I think Georgia slides in. Ohio State and Michigan, they're kind of running the same. I think whoever wins the Big Ten, obviously for sure in. But whoever loses in their rivalry game, there's a legit case that they might not get in. Say LSU wins the SEC championship, that's going to take up a spot and push Georgia to a 2 or 3 or 4 seed. And then if TCU gets in, and then, you can't deny a 12-1 Pac-12 conference championship winner at the same time, then in that case, there's a chance that Georgia or LSU or whoever gets pushed out. I don't see both of them get into the playoff. I think whoever wins that game and then wins the Big Ten championship will ultimately take up one spot for the Big 12 and one spot only. I don't see how both teams get in. TCU, they control their own destiny. They win out, they're in. They win the Big 12 title, they're in. As long as they don't lose, I think if they lose, I think that's really going to hurt them. Big game going to Texas this weekend, so that'll kind of be, I think, a big deciding factor for a lot of people in the media and fans in general to see like, oh, okay. Because everyone thinks Texas is good. I mean, they almost beat Alabama without their starting quarterback. They just upset Kansas this weekend. So it just depends. If TCU wins out, they can't be denied, in my opinion. There's no way in hell. No way in hell that they can be denied. Tennessee has a legit case because their only loss is to the number 1 team in the country. So, if things kind of fall their way, they can get in. But I think, in my honest opinion, if you win your conference championship and you only have 1 loss and there's a team that didn't make their conference championship, I think that you deserve it. You played one more game. You were the champion of your conference. So I think Tennessee definitely has a pretty clear path, but I think some chaos has to ensue for that to happen, in my personal opinion. Oregon, USC, UCLA, all kind of running in the same boat here. I think for USC and UCLA, they have to play, which will ultimately knock one of them out of contention if they're both sitting there when they do play, leaving it up to if they were to beat Oregon. And if they beat Oregon bad, I think that would be a big boost up for them to be like, oh, okay, well, they beat Oregon bad too. Maybe they can compete better with a Georgia. But right now, Oregon controls their own destiny with their only loss being to the number 1 team in the country, just like Tennessee. So they have a real legit case and a real easy, solid path, in my opinion, to make the conversation that they deserve to be there at least. LSU, I think if LSU were to win the SEC, I don't see how they get left out of the playoff. Georgia will be the number one team in the country at that point. And you beat the number one team, you deserve a spot, in my opinion, especially in the SEC that is a tougher conference, in my opinion. That's just how I feel. But that would have to be a lot to happen for that. Alabama, like I said earlier, I think that they still have somewhat of a case. LSU obviously would have to lose 2 games. They have to beat Ole Miss this weekend to knock Ole Miss out of contention and keep themselves alive. And same thing, as LSU. I think that if they were to win the SEC championship, beat Georgia, the committee's not going to leave them out because it's the SEC. It's the best conference in the country. Everyone knows that. So Ole Miss, their path is really clear. They got to get through Alabama this weekend, and they just have to hope that LSU loses to Arkansas or Texas A&M, and they'd be in the SEC championship. They'd beat Georgia. They'd only have 1 loss, so it'd be a huge resume booster for them. And their only loss being to an LSU team that finishes out probably 9-3 if they were to lose 1 game, So it'd be a legit case, in my opinion. Clemson and North Carolina, I think, have a case. I think a lot of chaos has to ensue for one of them to get in, though. There has to be a lot of upsets, a lot of things to fall into place for that to happen. I mean, both their losses are to Notre Dame, a team that Ohio State did beat. So, they'll compare that resume if, say, Ohio State had only 1 loss and it was between them and Clemson or North Carolina. So I think there's a legit case. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams. 13 teams right now that I think have a case to make the playoffs. You could even throw a Utah or possibly Illinois in there. Illinois, I think, would have a legit case if, say, they were to beat Michigan, and then Michigan kept it close with Ohio State, and then Illinois beat Ohio State. I mean, depending on where those teams are ranked when they play them, they could push themselves back in that conversation, but very unlikely. Utah needs a lot to happen for them to get the Pac-12 championship. But if they were to, beat a Utah or beat an Oregon, they might get a chance. But a lot of stuff has to happen in order for all those teams at the back end to really make the playoff. I'd say Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU are really the only ones that I personally think control their own destiny no matter what. That if they win out, they're in, Same I could almost say for Oregon, realistically. For most of these teams, is if they win out and things fall in place, they have a legit case to be in the playoff. Now, a couple NFL thoughts here. The Vikings won, but they didn't cover the spread like I was hoping they would. The offense looked okay. They seemed to be moving the ball a lot more. The running game struggled. I mean, they had 22 attempts for 97 yards, or 56 yards, sorry. I don't know why 97 came in my head. 56 yards on the ground on 22 attempts is not good, especially when Dalvin Cook is your running back. They'll need to get that figured out, but passing game looked okay. Kirk Cousins was dancing on fucking the plane ride home, looking like an absolute G. So shout out Kirk on that one. The mid game of the year and the Bucs and the Rams lived up to the hype. Not a lot of points were scored. Tom Brady got his 55th game-winning drive, beating Peyton Manning's record, and was the first person to throw for over 100,000 yards in his career. So pretty cool accomplishment for him, I would say. But the guy's been playing since I was born, so not that crazy. Jets beat the Bills, making their playoff case looking better and better. Josh Allen might be hurt, though. That worries me. He's on my fantasy team. I'm also a big Josh Allen fan supporter, or what fan supporter? I don't know, man. I don't know how to talk. I'm pretty stupid sometimes, but Justin Fields, I think it's really going to work out. And, shout out the Bears for building their offensive scheme around him. Like, I think most NFL teams don't ever do. They just well, you're going to work with me and my scheme, and it's going to find a way to work. It's not the case. Life doesn't work that way. They're starting to figure it out. He's got Claypool. He's got a weapon now. He broke Michael Vick's regular season rushing record in a game for a quarterback with 175 yards, which is absurd, but they're playing to his skill set, and that is what every NFL team should do. Point blank period. I'm sure that next year's quarterback class, one of them, the quarterbacks are going to get ruined because they don't play to his scheme. That's just the nature of the NFL. You have to build your offense around your quarterback. You can't just because, this worked when I was in Kansas City or this worked when I was in Denver. No, it's not how it works. It just doesn't. The Lions and Jags were by far the biggest surprises of the weekend. The Jags beating the Raiders, the Lions beating the Packers. Packers are just continuing to struggle. Somehow, the Devontae Adams trade ruined both the Raiders and the Packers. The Packers, we kind of thought that it might. The Raiders, I don't know what's going on. Josh McDaniels should have just stayed as an offensive coordinator because it's just not looking like a good time for him in Las Vegas. But those are my NFL thoughts. Those are all my college thoughts. And now for just my thoughts. Just my thoughts. If you're an LSU fan, and after we lost to Florida State, and after we lost to Tennessee, you're dogging on BK, you're dogging on Jaden Daniels, you're dogging on the boys, you're sending fucking threats to our wide receivers after the Florida State game, making them delete all social media references to LSU because our fan base is really garbage because of that. You can't say shit about this team now. I fucking told y'all, have faith. Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in this country, and he will show you. And he did. What he does with his legs is why I was so happy when I found out he was transferring here, because I saw what he could do at Arizona State. I knew the kid had it in him to be great and be successful, and he's doing that, pushing for a Heisman case possibly. And it was going to take time. It was never going to be an overnight thing here at LSU. And you know what? The fact that we just did that in our first year with BK shows you that if you said anything bad about him early on in the season, you can go swallow a dick, because fuck you. BK is the man. He's doing things right. This team is doing things right. Hell of an effort from the boys on Saturday. Couldn't be prouder of them. I love the direction of this program, and I'm fucking so happy to be a fan of Brian Kelly and the Fighting Tigers, man. But if you're going to be a shitty fan, go hit the curb and find somewhere else, because things aren't going to change overnight. The season may not finish how you want it to, but right now we're on top of the world and things are going to get better because we're heading in the right direction. But if you had anything to say about the boys before, keep your mouth shut now. That's all I got to say. But that's today's show. And for now, your boy Titties is out. I hope you have a blessed week. I love you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Send this to an LSU fan in your life that's not me, preferably, because I already just said all that shit. But I love you. Stay blessed. But for now, your boy Titties is out.